check this out. I want to show you something. I'm going to show you how close this activity is, because not many people look, and chances are you've probably passed by this stuff, never given a second thought. Yeah. But I want you to look at something here. You see it?
Okay. See, now if I saw that, I would just straight away, I would assume.
You think it's a pile of
or
wood.
Or it's the park,
right?
Or organizing or something, right?
You want to go take a look at it? Let's go take a look at it. There's no rhyme or reason for any of this stuff. There really isn't.
Well, and this, because we're so close to the parking lot, because again, I would just straight away go, no, this has to be people.
It has to be, you would think, right?
Yeah.
But what I present to you is this. Look at these large pieces. They're being drugged. Look at this, still has a root system on it right there. It's being ripped out of the ground. Now, granted, it is older, I get it. Yeah. But my point is this. Why would a person go through all the effort to do this? For what? I've documented this particular site for a little over 7 years, more or less, and it has evolved and they've moved. I just feel like this is just not right activity. Yeah. It's very odd. Okay, we're coming up on it.
Okay.
It's gonna be in the creek bed down here. Hang on. Cool. I haven't been here in a while, so this will be a new thing. I haven't seen this one in about a year, dude.
Right.
I grew up in this area. I went to high school right down the street, and this area was not a park, never. It was all ranch land, and we used to party down here.
Wow.
As teenagers, bonfire, beer, trucks, just chilling. We're not doing anything stupid. I mean, well, not stupid, but we're not doing anything crazy. Is it still here? That's what I'm wondering. It was this, you'll trip out when you see it if it's still here. I gotta go down this way, Adam.
Okay, cool.
All right. Watch your head. One time I saw a little yearling carcass, and man, she looked like she was tied into a knot. Whatever ate this just tore her up and, just did a number on her. And I'm like, looked like a piece of spaghetti. This is the bed of the Salado Creek. So if you look, picture this at night.
Yeah.
It's pitch black, there's no lights up here, okay? Nobody would ever know if I'm just creeping through this bedrock, through this creek bed. Mind you, you've got residents on either side, right? But if I'm quiet and I can go right through here undetected.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? This is why I think it's more of a highway than anything else. Not saying that they reside here. Oh, here it is, dude. Okay. Look. Holy crap, dude. It looks different, man. There it is.
Shit. Yeah.
Yeah, come down here. Watch your head. Be careful, the loose. Watch out there. Good?
Yeah, I got it.
There she is, look at that. Here's what I want to draw your attention to. Look at these big pieces. Now, maybe you could argue that floodwaters have come through. We haven't had a good rain in a good while, or to me, water that would be able to lift that up would have to be of substantial height and depth. Like at the end of it, you could see. That's from where it ends. Mm-hmm. See all the mishmash there? That looks like that's from water. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. Bigfoot for me was always it was always exciting to me. I always believed. I want to tell you that I was always a believer. I think from a little guy all the way up to an adult, right? So Patterson Gimlin film, of course, In Search of, Leonard Nimoy, Unsolved Mysteries, all those things, right? So fast forward to my adulthood, and I'm on disability, and I'm binge watching this gentleman's YouTube channel from Utah, and he presents wood structures as a viable piece of trace evidence. Now, you got to understand, at that point, I was totally ignorant to the subject. I thought there was one Sasquatch, lived up in Northern California. That was it, right? And that's all it was, and all that good stuff. And there's only one. Well, he started presenting this trace evidence that really captured my attention. Wood structures and prints. And then he had his own encounters with some of these creatures as well. So it was very interesting. And so I binge watched the whole channel, basically, all the videos, like till like the wee hours of the early morning. And the last video was this video where he laid out how he finds trace evidence, these wood structures, and you know what needs to happen in order for you to find this stuff, basically, right? So he says, the habitat has to support big game, and then it has to be a water source, and then there has to be a passage in and out of this area. See, it's not enough for you to go to a little microforest and just go, I'm going to find evidence here. Well, look at the lay of land, the lay of the land, excuse me. Is there passage in and out of this place? Is there habitat that supports big game? Is there a water source? All these things have to come into play in order for you to really have a recipe, so to speak, for cryptid activity. So I followed it. The next day, I got my son. We went out and followed the methodology that was rolled out. And that same day, we found a wood structure, which was an area, I think I showed you in that area there. And we were just dumbfounded because I thought for sure it was people. I thought it was people. I thought this was a hoax. People were putting me on. This was, people going to jump out of the woods and be like, gotcha, never happened. So then I followed the creek. The creek bed that we're in right now is the Salado Creek. And lo and behold, this creek goes in and out of the city, and it goes all the way out of the city and into other towns. So that posed a passage or a highway, so to speak, as I like to call it. And so all of these wilderness parks that were connected to this Salado Creek had wood structures in them. Now, why was that? Are we talking about a team of people that go around building stuff for no reason at all, just to hoax people? Or do we have a cryptid thing going on here? And I'd like to believe it's the latter.
As a young child, I remember taking a book from my grandmother's attic. The Reader's Digest, Mysteries of the Unexplained. I remember opening it and seeing pictures of unimaginable monsters, UFOs, supposedly real photos of ghosts, and other bizarre things that up until that point in my life only existed in films that my parents would not have allowed me to watch. I spent hours going through these accounts and reports, and spent many a night afterwards sneaking into my parents' bedroom to sleep with them out of a desperate fear that a banshee would get me otherwise. I truly believe that this book sparked a flame that has refused to dwindle over the last not quite 30 years. Among the tales of ladies in white, spontaneous human combustion and Loch Ness was, of course, Bigfoot, along with his many other aliases. Stories from Tibet, Australia and Russia, but mostly Northern California, Seattle and British Columbia. This book had actual pictures taken by real people somewhere in some colossal forest in California, and for one reason or another, that lodged in my 8-year-old brain and stuck there. Now, I don't know if I ever really believed in Bigfoot, but it's something that I can't quite seem to let go of either. In recent years, I've been on a lot of paranormal investigations, sat in countless dark rooms with strangers waiting for something to happen, and ultimately came away feeling more of a skeptic than a believer. My name is Adam, and this is Houston Strange. While the Pacific Northwest is generally thought of as the real Bigfoot territory, the more stories I heard on the subject, the more I started to realise that these alleged encounters take place all over the world, especially in North America. The stories range from "I saw a big hairy creature crossing the road one night" to much more bizarre scenarios, and obviously I'll tell everyone to use their best judgment and take everything with a grain of salt, but the more I look into this topic, the more intriguing it becomes. I first heard Rod talking with my friend Timothy Renner on his show Strange Familiars, and straight away knew that I had to go and check out what he was talking about. San Antonio is only a few hours drive from Houston after all. I was very upfront with Rod that I was skeptical but curious, and Rod was totally understanding, but happy to take me out and show me in person what he was talking about. He wasn't trying to convince me of anything. He was very level-headed, and I thought, well, if nothing else, I'll get to spend a day out in nature, exploring a new part of Texas that I haven't yet been to.
This stuff is literally right under our noses. Yeah. And we just don't even give it a second thought, right? And here's what I'd say. I'd tell everybody this. Do you think when they make these wilderness parks that are acres and acres and acres, that they know every nook and cranny of this park? They don't. They make the trails, and maybe they kind of make sure they try to safeguard it as much as they can. And they have the warnings, snakes, whatever, blah, 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 right? But do they truly know what's traipsing through after hours? They really don't. San Antonio basically sits on top of a vast amount of cave systems, like one big underground cavern almost, right? There's parts of that Edwards underground aquifer where we get our water. It's a recharge zone. Filters through, we grab our water. That's how the city gets its water supply. That Edwards underground aquifer stretches from San Antonio all the way to Austin. That's vast. And you can't tell me that the local government of any of these cities know every piece and little nook and cranny of that underground cavern. Some of these cryptids, from what I remember, have been seen coming out of the caves in Hellier, Kentucky, which Kentucky has vast cave systems. We don't even know where they go, right? So knowing that element too as well, the creeks, the underground cavern, I'm not going to say conclusion, I came to conclusion. I'm leaning towards that these things could possibly reside underground. They come up at night to do their hunt. They utilize the creeks and greenbelts to maneuver in and out of the suburban areas, grab these white-tailed deer. They're abundant here. These wilderness parks, you can't camp in and you can't hunt in at all, just for recreation. So you've got a healthy population. You've got a highway. You've got underground coverage. Makes all the sense in the world. Now, I don't know where that opening might be, or where, it could be very well hidden. I've seen openings further north from here that are barred. They're all barred up for safety reasons, but it's pretty wide. Here's another thing. This particular park has a land bridge built over a parkway here that runs east-west, and it connects both wilderness parks now. So now you've got a land bridge where whatever can cross, animals from one side to the other real easy. It just makes so much sense. What I present is not far-fetched. It's not crackpot. It's not at all. It makes sense. If we're talking about an apex predator with high intelligence, a biped like that really wants to be covered up, it's very stealthy, man, this is pretty good situation. At night, nobody's going to be around here. And even if there was, you could hide anywhere you want. And they're masters hiding themselves and camouflage themselves. They really are. I think that we believe that we know all of it. We know it all. We really don't. We really don't. And I think it's because of that arrogance that keeps us from exploring the fact that there probably is other beings out there, undiscovered, if you want to call it that come into our areas, that live, breathe, they're physical, they bleed, they have hair, they defecate, you know what I'm saying? So it's that arrogance, I think, that keeps us from it. And for some people, maybe they just can't wrap their minds around it and they don't want to, because if they did, that would just freak them out. I get it. I totally get it. But that doesn't negate the fact that we've got thousands of encounters, Class A, Class B, Class C, and we've got some good footage. We've got lots of trace evidence to say that these things do exist. I believe that fully. And because if you're going to say that they don't, you're going to have to call these people, thousands of these people, liars.
The more I spoke to Rod, the more genuine he came across. His reasoning behind his relentless search for this possibly non-existent creature really seemed quite grounded. And these structures that he took me to were definitely more interesting than I had anticipated. More than just a couple of loose sticks lying against a tree, but far from the more sophisticated bivouac shelters that even a Cub Scout might build to earn a badge or two over the weekend. And next to each one were these small stone circles. They looked like rudimentary fire pits, but with no trace of a fire ever being lit. There was no empty beer cans, grocery store bags, or really any noticeable signs of human activity around them like you'd expect. One of the more unfortunate aspects of this type of paranormal investigation, if that's what we would call it, is that there are far more people willing to accept the idea that ghosts and demons lie waiting around every corner than there are people willing to believe in a Bigfoot-type creature living undetected in a habitat that could potentially provide adequate food, water, and camouflage. In preparation for this episode, I read a book called The Secret History of Bigfoot by John O'Connor, which unfortunately proved to be more about the COVID pandemic and the current state of political affairs than much else. But one argument that the skeptical author did put forth was that there's actually less proof that these creatures don't exist. Stories of far less fantastical beast sightings have always made for eye-catching tabloid headlines. Even growing up in Ireland, I remember hearing stories that people had seen pumas and other exotic big animals skulking around mysteriously in the mountains. And while these may have just been tall tales or maybe some eccentric's pet on the loose, as recently as January of this year, here in Texas, trail cams caught a picture of a wild ocelot stopping for a quick sip of water. There are only around 100 wild ocelots in the entire state. Not only that, over the last 15 years, the University of Arizona has captured photographic evidence of 5 individual jaguars that managed to find their way through arid, drought-riddled desert conditions and inane, highly secured border walls. These creatures managed to sneak through the night across hundreds of miles completely undetected by human eyes. There are supposedly black bears and alligators and all sorts of wonderful wildlife throughout the great state of Texas that I have yet to see with my own eyes. So I suppose if I wanted to be a true unbeliever, I could just say that everyone's lying until I'm proved wrong. That doesn't really sit right with me, but of course, there was an obvious question hanging over this interview with Rod. Have you ever seen a Bigfoot?
So I just kept on following these wilderness parks, documenting these wood structures. And that's just really what I present. I've never had a Class A experience. I've had, a growl happen. Me and my wife have been growled at by something that was not of indigenous to this area or the state, or I don't even know of this world, to be quite honest with you. But another guy at Lone Star Paracon had an encounter with something. At that time, again, the city wasn't as developed. There was this pond, and it was like on some type of a farm. And he told me the road and everything. I knew exactly where the area was. And he said, hey, we lived around that area, and we would go back there, explore with our BB guns, me and this other kid in the neighborhood. So they went back there one day to go and explore and just kind of shoot birds or whatever. And they got to the pond of this farmer's area. One boy said, hey, I'm going to go around the pond and kind of look around and see what I could find. And he told us, yeah, go ahead. I'll be right here. So he's looking around and he's checking things out. And he said there was this really tall brush or grass or something right behind him. He said he's standing by the bank, by the water, looking around, and he feels like he's being stared at. He felt an overwhelming feeling. He's like, I knew something or someone was back there staring at me. And he called out to his friend. His friend was coming back, said, hey, I think there's something back here behind this grass. And the boy says, his friend goes, shoot it. He turns around, takes his pellet gun, nothing. Called out to his friend. Nothing happened. Shoot it again. He turns around, and right when he shoots, he hears this thing roar. and it scares them to death. That other little kid takes off running and leaves his buddy. And he's like, I'm out, man. He starts running too. And when he starts running, he hears this thing running after him. He could hear and feel in the ground, boom, 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 chasing after them. They run through all kinds of thorns and whatever. Go back home, don't talk about it. So the next day, they go back to the same spot again, and they find footprints on the bank of that pond. And he said, I just thought they were big human footprints. We didn't know anything about Bigfoot. My whole point of saying this or telling these stories is that these creatures can and do travel, given the right lay of the land, the right situation, can and will go through suburban areas. Now, I do believe it's through creeks and greenbelts and rivers that they do utilize as passage, and I do believe they hunt off these creeks, greenbelts, and rivers. With my situation, with all the wilderness parks, that are all connected to this creek greenbelt, I think it's just passage and hunting, and grab what they can, and then go back to wherever they're from, or wherever they're going to. A little bit northeast from where we're at. It is off a road that's now the area now has been more developed as the city grows. Her parents have a piece of land that is kind of like, it's kind of out there in the country, but the city's kind of grown around it, type of thing. A few acres, and they live off of a tributary of Salado Creek. She was telling me, so there's two houses on the property, and they're a few yards away from each other, significantly enough to where you couldn't hear a whole lot, easy to walk right to. And the houses are older. They're not new. They're on pier and beam, and pier and beam can be pretty tall. And these houses sit a little high on pier and beam. And she said that when she moved in, she didn't have, I think, not much. She didn't have curtains at the time. And it was private property, so she didn't think anything of it, about maybe any intrusion, anything like that. She had her boys, two boys, in one room, their room, and she had her room. Well, I think they've settled in at this point. And one night, the boys, screaming bloody murder, run out of their room and run to her room, crying and screaming. We want to sleep with you, we want to sleep with you, we want to sleep with you. Okay, fine. It's, they're just little boys, fine, whatever. Second night, same thing. I mean, bloody murder, running over. Okay, so they go ahead. She goes, yeah, go ahead. You can sleep. Third night. Okay, this is getting old, guys. Like, what's going on? And they tell her that there is this tall, big black man that's staring at them through their window, in their room, outside, staring at them. And she thought, come on, I mean, if you didn't know anything about this, and little kids were telling you, like, they say have kids and they were telling you that, you'd probably be like, all right, whatever, they just want to sleep with mom. What we know. So she got curtains, put them up. That seemed to alleviate the problem. And then she told me that she was cooking one time and had the back door open. I guess it's pretty close to the kitchen, and something of substantial weight and size ran into the house. Freaked her out, got done with what she was doing, I think she put pots or pans out, whatever, ran out, went to go investigate. Nothing's there. What the heck? Ran into my house, shook it. I mean, what kind of a animal? What did this? Didn't know. Another day, I think she was cooking again or in the kitchen, and had the back door open, and smelled something horrible. I mean, like death, nasty. And she was like, the skunk just, what the heck? Like, again, went out to investigate. Went out to investigate. The smell is gone. No, nowhere to be, there's no evidence of it. It just, it's gone. So when she divulged all this to me, I'm sitting there going, this is classic. This is classic stuff that these creatures have been known to do. The behavior, it's uncanny. The window peeking, the smell, the slapping in the side of the house or running into the house. It's just all there. And I told her that. And at the time, I was still a little like, I was just still kind of new to it. So I was like, oh my gosh, that's Sasquatch activity. She's like, oh, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, like Bigfoot, Sasquatch, that's what they do. And, I've read encounters, I've read cases. This is textbook. And she believed me. Next thing I know, like a few months later, she's moving out into an apartment and closer to civilization, away from the parents. So, did I scare her? I don't know. Maybe I did. I'm not sure. But I mean, she believed their boys afterwards. She was like, and she thought that there was somebody, a man, tall and big, African American, walking up into the property that's gated and staring in their window in their boys' bedroom.
This story is absolutely, quote unquote, typical Bigfoot phenomenon, in as much as there are a lot of people who have reported experiencing very similar activity around properties all over the world. People camping, staying in log cabins, people living in trailers and isolated houses have reported this particular example of what sounds or feels like a large animal slamming into their wall, or some have suggested it sounds like something slapping the walls with an open hand as if to test the structural integrity, or maybe even just to scare the people inside. To be fully transparent with you, this interview with Rod happened almost a year ago to the day, and since then I have been in touch with maybe a dozen individuals who claim to have experienced Bigfoot activity or maybe even laid eyes on a Bigfoot. People from as far as North Texas to Liberty County and even as close as Huntsville. But every time I tried to lock down an interview or even a phone call, the individual would get cold feet or some sort of family tragedy would happen. This person from New Waverley, though, emailed me with a very similar experience to the one that Rod shared. I grew up in the small town of New Waverley from the age of 9 until I was about 14. I always heard stories of Bigfoot, how they would scream and do the knocks, but I never actually saw one until that summer when I was about 12. I lived about a mile outside of town and a couple of blocks from my friend's house. Her house was near a tree line that had a small section of trees that were sectioned off by barbed wire. Then on the other side was a 2-lane highway, then more woods. I would ride my bike over to my friend's house and the blacktop would end and it would be dirt road that led into the woods. When I would get to the dirt road part, I always felt like someone or something was watching me, and I would turn around and go back. It scared me. One day, me and my mother went to my friend's house. My mom would visit with her mom and I would hang out with my friend. We were in the house and it had gotten dark outside. And the way the bedrooms were set up, I could see the bathroom and the bathroom window. Now, mind you, this house is sitting on about 5 or 6 cinder blocks, which would make it at least 3 or 4 feet off the ground. From the outside, the bathroom window was at least 8 to 10 feet up, meaning that you would have to have a ladder to see inside the window. So we were sitting on the edge of the bed and I could easily see the bathroom window. Me and my friend were talking and petting her chihuahua, Captain. Next thing I know, I look up at that window and see a face with golden eyes. I whispered to my friend, trying not to move my mouth, and told her to look at the bathroom window. She looks up at me and says, "What?" I said, "Look at the bathroom window, but don't scream." The whole time my eyes are locked onto those golden eyes. As soon as she looked at that window, she screamed. And when she screamed, I screamed. And we both jumped up to run into the kitchen where our mothers were, but there was a door frame we had to get through. We were side by side, fighting to fit through that door frame. We finally get to the kitchen and tell our mothers that something was outside the bathroom window looking at us, not thinking at that moment that these were two women on their own in this isolated house and them being afraid. So our mothers blew us off saying that there's nothing outside and just left it at that. The next day I went back to my friend's house around noon. Her and I were outside swinging on a tire swing and I said, hey, let's check and see if we can find any footprints on the ground by that window. Why I thought about that then, I don't know. So we walk over to where it would have been standing and see nothing. So I said, hey, let's go to where the fence line is and see if we can see anything. My friend refused, so I told her I would go if she just stood on the porch to watch in case something happens. So here I am with my little brave but scared self, looking where the dirt was between the road and the grass, and there was a huge footprint. It was the left foot, but it was only one, and that meant this thing had to have been huge because the other foot must have landed on the other side of the fence. I have told family and friends about this encounter and they don't believe me. I even asked my friend about if she remembered, but she swears she doesn't. I think she does, but it scared her so bad that she pushed it to the back of her mind. Now, this story took place back in the 80s and I did reach back out to the person who sent it to me, but unfortunately that area has been built up and the layout is no longer the same. But interestingly enough, while I was in Liberty County one day following up on a very different story, which hopefully I'll be able to share with you all soon, I was talking to some locals who told me that one of their colleagues had seen what she thought to be a Bigfoot while on her way to work one day. And when I got home that day, I decided to check out the BFRO website, Bigfoot Research Organisation. I was pleasantly surprised to see a report on there dated October 2024 from that very same area. Looking on the map, New Waverley and this other location are about 55 miles apart and span both the Sam Houston National Forest and the Big Thicket National Preserve. From the BFRO report, I managed to track down the witness and tried and failed several times over several months for an in-person interview, but between family tragedies and serious sudden ailments, it just didn't work out. In fact, this individual actually believes that this run of bad luck is directly linked to her brief encounter with this alleged Bigfoot. Not to get too lost in the sauce here, but she's definitely not the first person to believe something along these lines, and it's a driving factor in the Bigfoot believer community that these encounters could potentially be linked to UFO sightings, as there have been a considerable number of people who have reported sicknesses similar to what this Liberty County experiencer has now reported. I sincerely hope this individual has a speedy recovery and maybe we can still get an on-location interview sometime in the near future, but I always got the impression that these Bigfoot encounters were more like seeing some sort of peaceful wandering being who just kind of walked through the hills eating plants and berries. But now though, I'm starting to get a very different idea.
I've had a wildlife biologist out here with me. I've shown him the same stuff that I'm showing you, nothing different. And I took him to a spot where I found this deer carcass, this doe, and I'll show you where the spot is because it's kind of by where we parked. And I found it, and she, all of her legs were pulled off. All four legs were pulled right off of her. All four of her legs were pulled off. Her head was pulled off, her neck.
Jesus.
Her bottom jaw and her top jaw were pulled apart, and they were just strung about. Legs and bottom jaw and top jaw. And then when he got some gloves on, and he sat down and he picked up the torso. And when he put it together, it was in two pieces. Picked it up, one, put it together. And when he put it together, the spine dipped down like this. It was like flat, like, like a regular, boom, like that, where it broke. And he's told me, he said something with great force broke this back of this doe. And I said, okay, well, let's play devil's advocate. I'm like, homeless people? He was like, you'd have to be one badass homeless person, A, to chase down a whitetail, B, to break its back with what? Like a rock? I mean, what,
How else are you gonna
and
do
then
it?
to pull the legs off and pull the head off, the top jaw, like something with force.
And so what else are we thinking here? Like, let's say it was already dead or whatever.
Sure.
Like, is it coyotes? Like, that's the only other option?
I have seen one coyote in my area in the 16 years that I lived in this spot. in this area. Not saying that it couldn't be, it could be. And now here's what I'm gonna say. I don't deny that, the scavengers, the usual suspects came and, tore the flesh off, ate some of it, whatever. It happens. That's just the way nature works, right? But when you put that torso together and I saw that dip in the back, I was like, I don't know. I don't have an answer, and neither did he. He didn't know what to tell me either.
Rod's biologist friend, who, by the way, has a PhD in chemistry and DNA studies from Harvard, has been out with him on a few occasions, and they've even collected samples from some of the sites that we visited that day. And they came back with some fairly ambiguous results stating human DNA, primate DNA, and something else that they had no reference for. Now, again, I do like to stay on the skeptical side of all of these cases, and without seeing proof of these results, I can't say one way or the other. But to be perfectly honest, I probably wouldn't even know what I was looking at if they did show me. That being said, if I was going to lean into the Bigfoot being a real thing idea, I think there is a paranormal element to it. And this is another hugely divisive opinion, even among Bigfoot believers. Much like I believe this episode in its entirety will be pretty divisive among Houston Strange followers. But, just like Rod says, if we're going to be open to some of this, we really should be open to all of it. I want your opinion on this, whether you're pro or anti-Bigfoot. I want to hear your argument, but more importantly, if you believe you've had your own encounter with Bigfoot or anything else, I want to hear your personal experiences. We headed back to the car park shortly after our interview, but our day was far from over. We met Rod's wife, tried to cool off a little bit, and headed to our next location as the sun started getting low in the San Antonio sky. This time the atmosphere was a little more fitting to what I had expected when I originally agreed to hang out with Rod, and although it was still a pretty built up area, as we parked our cars and headed off the beaten track, it didn't take long to feel as though we were in unwelcome territory, as though we were about to disturb some long sleeping thing who lived deep in the forest.
I feel like there is a supernatural element to these things. I really do. I do not think we are chasing a big primate, a bipedal primate out in the woods here. I really, because if that was the case, Adam, we would have had one by now. Oh, this is weird. Look at that. What is it for? Like, I don't understand. I haven't seen this.
Hanging in the tree maybe before?
Maybe, man.
That's some Blair Witch stuff.
That's what I'm saying. It's a weird area, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let's check this out. This over here was not there when the last time I was here was, I think, about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Right.
And then a week before that, me and Haskell were here documenting some things and taking samples. This was not here. Look at this. It's just built up. Look at that. Look, here's something else that's kind of odd. And I guess maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but check this out, look.
You know, I literally was just on my way over to look at this. Why is that? Is it just loose?
Yeah. Now for me, I never tried to manipulate any of these or mess with them. That's just me personally. Some people would say that, you maybe, some energy may come home with you or something of that nature, or,
right.
It's like they maybe feel like it's taboo. You shouldn't manipulate this because they'll follow you or whoever they are type of thing. So, I mean, and not that that's what I believe. I don't do it only because, in some way, it's kind of strange. I look at it as kind of like art, and I don't want to mess with somebody else's art.
No, I get that.
And maybe that sounds stupid, but that's just kind of how I feel about it. And then this here see, this stuff is just it's odd to me. Look at it.
Yeah, it's definitely like the pile over here by the tree, like at the base.
Right there,
see
yeah.
The other side, yeah.
So the other structure was over here, but no, it was over here.
Look, straight ahead,
It was right there.
Wow.
It's gone.
It's still sort of built up though.
But
I mean, to be honest,
You
this
see
is a
it?
very uneducated guess. I feel like people are more likely to take these things down than to put them up.
Oh,
I think you're right.
Put the light on it, honey. Look,
But look,
it's still sort of up.
You still have the...
But look at the structure like itself. Like it's like almost like a teepee shape.
And that's what I'm saying. In origin, I don't think that... It doesn't seem like it's a human thing.
Yeah.
In origin, okay? Now, you could clearly see somebody they spray painted right there. I got you. I understand that. And there looks like some type of leash. It's right there.
Here, put it on the limbs themselves.
That's part of the tree right there. But look, no, right here. This.
This is part of the tree?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, how does that even... That's crazy.
I wish the one that was on the other side of the park was still intact.
It's not.
That one was so intricate. It had like evidence that there was some kind of creature or animal or something killing things over there. There was bones surrounding like the area, like vulture bones, deer bones, all sorts of... That one that had the entrails of a fucking raccoon.
The entrails were...
They were just... We kept smelling something terrible.
Yeah.
And on the outside of the structure, we just saw strings of this like...
Yeah.
And hair, and we were like, holy shit, that's like the entrails of like an animal.
It was
like they had
entrails,
wrapped it around it. It was almost...
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't even know.
So this area to me has always been fairly active from what, I've been able to document.
Yeah.
And it continues to be that now. This is going on 7 years.
So there I was, slightly sunburnt, absolutely riddled with mosquito bites, and eager to get acquainted with a large number 4 from the nearest Dairy Queen before hitting the road back to Houston. I was genuinely intrigued by what Rod and Isabel had shown me that day, and I loved Rod's enthusiasm for what he was doing. Still skeptical, always skeptical, but with a newfound appreciation for the fact that there was definitely something strange happening in these parks. And little did I know, I was about to lay eyes upon a magical creature that I had never seen before that day.
Oh, you see the fireflies? Look, honey.
Oh, wow.
See it?
Yeah. Look, I've actually never seen one before. So.
You've never seen it before?
Yeah.
Put your flashlight away so he can see it and them actually light up it.
What's funny...
Not long after that lovely day spent in the outdoors with my newfound friends, I was hired to do a photo shoot of some local mountain bikers here in Houston. And I spent a good few hours traipsing through wooded areas a little closer to home, while these guys took me to their hidden spots where they had constructed ramps out of pallets and mounds of dirt because Houston is about as flat as can be. But the whole time I was out there, I was keeping an eye out for wood structures like the ones Rod had shown me, kind of thinking that this would disprove a lot of the theory behind them, but to my surprise, I didn't come across a single one. Maybe that means something, or maybe it means nothing, but either way, I would love to hear from you guys listening and watching because I am so curious to know what you think about this. Comment below, DM me, or send me an email at houstonstrangepodcast@gmail.com. A huge thank you to Rod for showing me around his stomping grounds, and if you'd like to keep up with Rod and what he's got going on, make sure to follow him on Instagram at Bear County Bigfoot. That's Bear with an X, as in the county where San Antonio is located. It's also worth mentioning that since this interview took place, Rod and Isabel have welcomed a new baby into their family, so a huge congratulations is in order. Don't forget to follow me wherever you're watching or listening to this. Like, rate, review, subscribe, and most importantly, stay strange, Houston.